Welcome, everybody, to the Monthly Movie Dispatch. This is a show where we get together every month and we talk about what we've seen, what we haven't seen, what we recommend, and what to avoid. What separates us from the other 100,000 movie-related shows that are on YouTube and on podcast networks is that we're high school friends, and we've been discussing movies for 15 years, going on 16. We love talking film, and we'd be doing it even if no one was listening. So, I'm here today in Marysville, Washington. I'm Nick Moffitt, and I'm here with Derek. What's your deal?
Hi.
Where you at, man? Everett?
I'm in Everett.
We got Sean Bowlby in Seattle, Washington.
Hello.
And we got his brother, Brandon Bowlby, also for this episode in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
So,
I guess.
you guys are actually like sitting next to each other right now? Is that what's happening?
Yep.
Wow.
At the same place.
Maybe next year at this time we'll be able to all be in the same place.
Yeah.
And we'll have gone super famous by that point, and we'll have a sold out theater of people listening to us talk about the Monthly Movie Dispatch.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not, but one can dream. Either way, anyway, guys, I'm excited to talk to you guys about movies today. We've got a bunch of movies to talk about. We have our film club segment that Sean picked a movie for this month from any time in history that we're going to be talking about up top. And then each of us have picked a movie from 2020 that we're going to be going through and discussing. So, I don't know, we got a lot to talk about, but real quick, let's do some warm-up questions. I tried to make them relevant for what's going on, and unfortunately, we lost a great actor just a few days ago. Chadwick Boseman passed away, and he had stage 3 colon cancer, and I don't think anyone really knew about it. It was very surprising and shocking and very, very sad. That being said, what for you guys was the best Chadwick Boseman movie?
It really sucks that I haven't seen, I think I've only seen him in Black Panther and the Marvel stuff. I know he's done some other pretty prominent roles, but I haven't had the opportunity to actually see any of those movies.
42.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually going to ask you guys what was the better biopic from Chadwick Boseman, 42 or James Brown. But I figured you guys hadn't seen both of those.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've not seen it.
Yeah. 21
I think
Bridges.
the only other one I've seen with him in it is Da Five Bloods.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually it. 42 and the Five Bloods. So with that said, my favorite is 42.
Okay, cool. I'm going with Black Panther like Derek, but...
I'll go with Black Panther for sure. Since I haven't seen any of his other movies.
Well, staying relevant with our show, Sean picked an Alfred Hitchcock movie for his film club segment. Out of these 3 Alfred Hitchcock movies, which one is your favorite or the best? Psycho, The Birds, or Rear Window?
Psycho, for sure.
Rear Window.
The Birds.
Birds.
3-way split.
Ooh,
Nice.
What about Nick tiebreaker?
Ooh, honestly, I think Psycho is his best movie, but The Birds is my favorite Hitchcock movie.
You didn't go with with Vertigo either. You didn't throw that in there.
Yeah, well, I could have also said North by Northwest and Vertigo. I was going to throw those 2 in there, but then I figured 3 would make it more interesting to get a split, possibly, which we ended up getting. And I also could have thrown Rebecca in there or Rope. But, Hitchcock, you can go on and on and on, it seems like.
Yeah.
So Derek picked a horror movie for his 2020 movies for this month. Going back a couple summers, which was the better summer horror movie? Midsommar or Hereditary?
I put Midsommar higher. So
I put Hereditary higher. I liked Hereditary. I think I enjoyed Hereditary more just because I thought it was scary. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
but it was scarier. It was more intense. Midsummer's great, and it's just a little, I don't know, slower, more think piecey, I guess.
Yeah, that guy's an incredible director. But Hereditary, like I often still like go and watch little like videos on Hereditary. Just it's such an endlessly fascinating and truly terrifying movie. Definitely Hereditary for me.
I'd go with Midsummer, honestly.
Even split.
So, but yeah, he's great.
We need Kelly for a tiebreaker. She hasn't seen either.
I've been trying to get Shannon, my wife, to watch her to watch Midsummer. She doesn't really like horror movies that much, and I feel like it's like barely a horror movie.
Yeah, Midsummer's fairly light.
Yeah, but
that's well.
But the
I mean,
opening,
in comparison,
light, fun
in
little
comparison to
summer romp
Hereditary,
movie.
it's just like Jesus
Right.
Christ.
the thing that's stopping her from watching it is that she knows about the opening scene, and like that opening scene is like so like traumatic and awful and scary, but not really scary, but just really messed up. And yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what stopped me from rewatching the movie too. I really want to watch the director's cut though, so one of these days.
Yeah, I've been trying to get. I think I've convinced Kelly to watch it, and we just haven't had an opportunity. So maybe we can.
Need like some 4 hours
see
set
me,
aside.
but I'm syncing up my fingers. We can
sync him up. Sync him up. Sync him up, man. You gotta do it. You gotta sync him. Anyway, so let's get into the show. So we started a new segment this month called Film Club. For those that haven't been listening the last few months, while we were in quarantine during the pandemic, every month we picked a movie from any time period. All four of us would pick a different movie from any time in history, and all four of us would be forced to watch it. And it was very fun for a few months, but we're trying to get back into 2020 movies, even though theaters around us aren't really open yet. We're trying to, find movies to talk about from this year, but we still wanted to keep a nugget of the of what we were doing the last few months into our show, because it was really fun to have everyone pick a movie. So we're gonna do one movie a month. Everyone picks. We'll rotate months. And Sean got to be the first person to pick a movie for the Film Club segment. So, Sean, do you want to set us up with your movie?
I picked The Trouble with Harry, the Alfred Hitchcock film. IMDb summary is: The trouble with Harry is that he's dead, and everyone seems to have a different idea of what should be done with his body.
That's a good summary. That's a solid summary, Sean. So
Yeah.
This was a pretty unique movie. It was a comedy, and Hitchcock doesn't typically do comedies. Why did you pick this movie?
It kind of is in theme with many of the other movies that I've picked. I've been picking kind of interesting and kind of unexpected movies within directors' careers, where the directors are typically better known for other types of genres or other types of movies, with like The Killing with Alfred or with Stanley Kubrick, and then After Hours with Martin Scorsese. So I kind of wanted to go with that theme and reinforce that theme, and I think this is a really great movie in that theme, because Alfred Hitchcock is not known for his comedy by any means, even though like in a lot of his movies I actually think he's quite funny. He has a really good sense of humor in a lot of his movies. It's a bizarre movie. The summary doesn't really explain it super well, but the movie is about Harry dies in the woods, and several people from this small little New England town all think that they are responsible for his death, and so they're all kind of trying to cover up his body, and antics ensue. Yeah, it's
Sean, you used a word last week to describe a comedy about death that that the rest of us hadn't heard before. What was that word again?
Gallows humor.
Gallows humor.
It's just humor from death. I think that term actually comes from public executions, and there being entertainers. Like, people would come out to public executions for the entertainment value of them, and there would actually be entertainers there at the executions. And
how do you know this?
Just know things.
So I think that's kind of where the term comes from. If we wanted a history lesson here, but yeah, it's just really making light of death and dead bodies, and this is kind of a if you looked it up in the dictionary, this movie might come up. Movie poster might be there.
Okay, yeah,
type thing.
I had no idea about gallows humor, but this movie, I was wondering, would you describe this as like absurdist? Because for me, like, I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. I was entertained throughout, but also I had no idea what was happening for any of it. Like, I was very confused why everyone didn't really care that much about getting caught, or they're all worried that they thought that they all thought that they were the murderer, but no one was worried about going to jail or anything. And it was very confusing to me. But I think it was maybe supposed to be absurdist.
Yeah, I would say in that arena, maybe it doesn't really hold up to more modern absurdist comedies. In its absurdity, but it kind of takes on a much more light tone. But I would say that is true. You really aren't, while you're watching the movie, you're not supposed to concern yourself with whether or not the characters are going to get away with it, and what's the moral implications of what's going on, and are these the characters that you're watching and the protagonists is what they're doing right, or is it wrong? It's just a bizarre, light-hearted, kind of fun little romp that involves this dead body.
Right.
And I think the movie really rides on that concept, and it really has a lot of fun with it. It kind of, and like the idea of using that framework for a movie, which very easily probably could be a much more serious movie, using that for a comedy and finding what kind of situations the characters get themselves in is, I think, what makes the movie super fun. And especially like towards the end, when they're like they're constantly going back and forth debating of whether or not they want to bury the body or dig up the body or rebury the body or dig up the body. It's just like, it gets pretty out there, and
then bizarre. It winds up in the bathtub somehow.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. It's I guess like for me, for my second watch, like I remember my first watch, I remember like just being totally blown away with how bizarre the movie was, and like the way I remembered it was just like so out there. But on my second watch, it was a little slower to get to really kind of ramp up, and I was less interested in like the characters and the earlier in the movie, kind of the first half of the movie wasn't as interesting to me, but then I do think it did kind of take off in the second half and started getting more bizarre. But yeah, I guess I'm curious to think. I guess I know what Nick thought about it. What do you think, Derek?
I liked it a lot. It was very different for an Alfred Hitchcock movie, but I think it being all about death and stuff was still kind of an appropriate subject for him. I think the things I really liked about it were like they're all pretty simple base things. I really liked just like the look of the movie. It was really bright the whole time. Mm-hmm. Like really captured that
like pastel colors.
Yeah, it looked like a painting like the whole time. Mm-hmm. And
emphasize that.
Yeah, like Mr. Marlowe really like won me over pretty quickly because he's just such a quirky, like weird guy. Like, you know, I mean, there's a setting and there's a time that the movie exists in. I don't really know exactly when it was made or when it takes place, but
1955 it came out.
Okay.
So yeah, right in that like nuclear family,
right.
Americana,
and they're kind of seems like they're out like pretty far out in the middle of nowhere, like this little town. There's not even like real cops there. It's like a volunteer deputy.
Somewhere in New England. I don't know, Connecticut maybe. Is that, Brennan? Do you have an idea? I guess Nick.
It did look like New England. Like I don't think it was specific at all, but it definitely looked like an old New England town, which I really thought was cool. And Derek, I want just that the color palette there really felt like New England as well, and especially in the fall, like it felt like New England in the fall.
Right. Yeah, and that character just really kind of carried me through the movie, I think, because he was just unique enough and had like weird observations and opinions about things, and like just the way he interacted with people. You never really knew what he was going to say or like what perspective he was going to take on which situation, and like I don't know. I think for this kind of story, and it's not like a super dense movie, you know. I think like that character was like integral to making it so enjoyable for me. It just like weird things he did. And I don't know if any of them made sense, like cutting the cigarette pack in half. He's like, I'll be back to buy the other half late. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like in my head, I was like, well, maybe cigarettes didn't have filters back then. And so cutting in half actually does work. You do like half a cigarette, but I don't know. Mm-hmm. Or maybe he's just being a quirky, silly guy and like it doesn't make sense. And that's what's funny about it. I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know. He kind of won me over. Like, and it's just like weird, he like needs money. He's like poor, right? But like he won't sell his shit. It's just, I don't know. It's just funny. And, that's what really held the movie together for me.
For payment, as payment for his paintings, he asks, everyone what one thing that they want.
Right. Yeah, and that's after denying the guy any like willingness to sell stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think I was a little meh on this film. I think the most interesting part about it is why you chose the film is to see Hitchcock a little bit before his like 7-film perfect spree he went on towards the end of his career. Mm-hmm. And this is like just a little bit before it, and he maybe had a few like good movies around it as well. It's not 30s Hitchcock, but it's still pre like
Vertigo.
It's still
right
pre
before
North
Vertigo
and Vertigo.
Psycho, Northwest.
So yeah, like that novelty of seeing Hitchcock do a different genre a little bit before his prime was like thanks for showing me that. But like most of the film to me, I was like kind of a little meh on, and you kind of said it, especially with the first half on it, kind of like not making much sense or amounting to much of anything, and people doing these small things that also just like weren't all that funny. Like I didn't really even laugh at the absurdness of it. I don't know, like the guy tripping because he's like reading a book, it just like wasn't that funny either. And if it had at least nailed that, I could have been more on board. So it missed that mark for me. It did get a little more did pick up more towards the end as the more like complex like stuff with the body was going on, but it really took a little. There's like them going out to dinner and him trying to like swoon, that 40-year-old virgin girl, it like seemed just very out of place and not really a part of the story. Especially the first half, like you already said.
Yeah, I mean, I do think like when I first saw the movie, I was kind of swept away by the ridiculousness of the concept. But then, like in my head, I think I kind of reinforced that a lot, and as on a second watch, I did like I was a little less into the first half for sure.
Well, I
don't think there was too much Hitchcock is like greatness Hitchcock isms in it. Like there wasn't too much incredible like directing either. Like, I mean, there's that really, like, besides literally the poster, where when that shot happens, you're like, whoa, like, that's really cool. And then, like, it just goes back to being super 50s and normal and plain after that.
The poster with the shot with the
I guess I should explain, with the kid in the feet, and, like, he's almost a part of the body.
Yeah.
It's just this one really starking shot they do a couple times in the movie. So I guess I also missed there being, like, more, like, elevated direction in the movie as well, that Hitchcock is so known for, especially later on after this. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's
I do think there's something to this though about I think there were a handful of Hitchcock things, maybe not like directing, like stylizations, shots and stuff, but I do think there were a lot of like plot elements that were akin to a Hitchcock movie, but they were in the background. You know, like the plot of the movie, someone dies and everyone thinks that they're the murderer. Like that could be another Hitchcock movie, but serious. Like that could be,
like Sean said at the beginning.
That could be a whole mystery. Mm-hmm. But instead it's just like a silly movie. And I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny.
I will say I did. Like, I liked all the characters for the most part. Maybe not the mother character with whose kid finds the body.
Man, Shirley MacLaine was amazing though. Like she was so fun. That was
which one is she?
She was the young mother,
the virgin lady.
She's the young girl, but I've only known her as an adult. Like I've only known her as like the old lady who was in Bernie and Bewitched and stuff. I guess I saw her in the apartment.
Honestly, Nick, I googled her right when she came up on screen because she was just like so stylish and cool and like had such a great presence right away. Like I pulled up IMDb instantly and I was like, I wonder if she like had a big career after this.
Oh yeah, huge
for sure,
huge. Yeah. I think she's a Best Actress winner. But
like Captain Albert Willis. I really liked his character, and I even kind of liked the 40-year-old virgin.
Was Hitchcock in this movie?
I don't think so. I didn't know.
Yeah,
was he? Where was he?
Nick?
Did you catch him? He's
the man walking past Sam's outdoor exhibition. I see that on Letterboxd, so I didn't catch him, but he is credited.
Nice.
So I do think we should move on though, because we got 4 of the movies to talk about. But so it sounds like it was a pretty silly movie. For fans of Hitchcock, I think you should check it out because it's something different coming from him.
Sure.
So moving on though, Derek, we're going to talk about your 2020 pick.
Okay. So I chose Relic. It was directed by Natalie Erica James. It's her first movie. And the Letterboxd plot synopsis is, when Edna, the elderly and widowed matriarch of a family, goes missing, her daughter and granddaughter travel to their remote family home to find her. Soon after her return, they start to discover a sinister presence haunting the house and taking control of Edna. So I chose the movie because I think it would have probably got a pretty big release. It seemed like a movie, like I saw lots of trailers for it on TV, and it was only VOD. So I think that they knew they had something pretty good there. And this is a movie I would have seen regardless. I would have made time to go see it in theaters if it came out in theaters. So I wanted us all to, give it the chance and check it out. And it was getting good reviews. So, that's why I chose it. And God, this movie was something else. I really, really, really love this movie. It's like, for me, I thought it kind of followed similar trends in horror that are popular. Like, you could make a genre of, like, I could probably name 20 movies off the top of my head that are about scary old people. It's almost like small genre, subgenre. There we go. Inside of
Just
horror.
like scary kids.
Yeah, exactly. Just like scary little kids,
horror movie genre.
Yeah, haunted house. Like, yeah. But I think so. I think this movie like kind of leans into some tendencies of those horror tropes, but man, it really elevates on every level. I think like what really made this movie work for me, I think, is from the get-go, you feel a kinship in like these characters. Like nobody really likes each other, but it's like very obvious that they, are totally willing to put their lives on hold to, help each other. And like, grandma's missing, the mother and daughter don't have a good relationship. The mother and grandmother don't have a great relationship. But somehow through like the acting and the writing and directing, they're able to subtly sell their relationship to me. And I think that's like key because they do that pretty early on. And throughout the movie, as things get worse and worse and worse, like, and they kind of start diving further into different tropes with like, I don't know, like a dark body moving in the shadows that, someone catches out of the corner of their eye, or different jump scares, which really do work for me in this movie. Like that, but building that family dynamic when the ending comes, like it hits so hard for me, at least. Like, I don't know if we should get into spoilers. I think this movie's pretty like, the spoilers are pretty important to your enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
And it's a new movie, so maybe we shouldn't really spoil the ending. But I just think it was so carefully crafted in a like genre that's not known for their care for telling complicated stories about complicated subjects like dementia and stuff like that.
There were totally. I mean, there was a lot of like deep, complicated like dynamics between the characters, which you're like that doesn't happen in horror movies frequently, where characters are so like they have these mixtures of relationships where like the daughter says something, the mom interprets it a different way, the grandma interprets it a different way, and then you could see their dynamics like unfolding through that. I want to say a few things about this movie, but I agree, Derek, that it's a new movie. We don't want to spoil it, but it kind of has that element of like Hereditary, where it's something scary is happening like on screen, and it's truly terrifying. But also like a big part of the movie is like just real like drama that happens between humans. And the movie works as an allegory to sell you on the drama, to like show what that feeling is really like for people who go through it. Like it can be like the real thing that people are going through can be really scary and intense, and they kind of convey that as an allegory, but it's also like really, really scary. And I don't know about you guys, I wanted to kind of bring this up with you guys, but like, I, for a minute there, like forgot that it was a horror movie. I got so sucked into the drama that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like moving. There's a scene later on in the movie where like the mother and the grandmother have this conversation, and I was like so moved by it. I forgot it was a horror movie, and then went back to the daughter, and I was like, oh no, we're watching a horror movie. And I got so scared immediately, and my whole body tensed up, and like I honestly almost turned it off and walked away. I almost had to take a break because I was so scared. But like part of the fear was that I had forgotten. I had like let my guard down. I got so invested in the emotional elements of the movie that when the horror came back, I was just not prepared for it.
Yeah, Nick, I would actually compare this more closely, maybe also because it's a Australian horror film, but the Babadook, where I feel like those two movies are more closely related, where Babadook uses grief as the monster, like almost a literal incarnation of grief. Is the monster.
Yeah.
And this movie, it's dementia is the monster. And also there's like the setting, it's one house, very few characters, trapped in this house with this scary monster. But,
female director.
Female director, Australian.
Jennifer Kent.
Yeah.
To me, like, one of the coolest things about this movie is, like, it was genuinely scary. And to watch it by myself in my apartment with the sound loud late at night, like, it was so fun to be terrified. And I just haven't, like, seen a horror movie that's riled me up like that in a bit. I think in the wrong setting, you could easily just, like, casually watch this movie and say it was nothing.
Yeah.
But, like, with the right sounds by yourself, it was great. And it made me feel all those things that, like, you would, in middle school when we'd go see these movies with huge groups of friends. I really liked the movie. The ending was just so, like, outstanding and resolved the movie in just, like, a really amazing climax. We can't say what happened, but the prosthetics were amazing. What it meant was amazing, and it just it ended the movie at the right point. Was just, like, a really smart cut. Yeah, blew me away. I think, like, because I just always want to throw a little criticism here. Like, Derek, you were talking about the tropes.
Yeah.
Like, one thing that did bother me a little bit about the movie, while I was scared, I was just getting a little annoyed at, like, the so typicalness of the, like, haunted house, the scary grandma. Here's just a scene where she does something a little bit weird, and then we just move on to the next scene. Like, here's her brushing her teeth for a moment. And yeah, I am feeling creeped out, but, like, I don't know. Like, it is just such a typical horror movie at times. Here's her, like, she has a hobby that's candle waxing, because we always have to have our,
it's
like,
creepy.
because it's so creepy and it's such a rare hobby. The monster in the shadows, and all of it did affect me, but I don't know. I can't just help but thinking it was just, like, too typical at times.
I guess, like, for me, I don't really disagree with any of that, aside from the fact that it worked. Like, it was like,
so well done.
It just did all. Yes, it did all that, but it worked and it was good. They did it effectively and it was scary. But I don't think that it relied on cheap jump scares, which I really
It's only like
appreciated.
one or two jump scares in the whole movie, I think.
Yeah, like there's, like, the book that fell, but, like, I don't even remember. That's the only one that I remember.
My favorite part was the scare was the hair in her face in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And the shadow in the background, the, like, what was the great grandfather shadow. And it didn't end in any jump scare at all, but, like, it gave me so much, like, perfect shivers seeing that in the background behind her.
They had a couple.
See, Brandon, that's why I didn't find this movie, like, cliche, like a cliche haunted house movie, because I felt like a lot of those, like, I agree, I loved that scene where there was, like, that shadow in the background, but up to that point, the movie was pretty slow, and there was hardly any, like, true, like, horror movie elements. Like, there were just stuff of her being weird, but, like, you kind of got the impression that there was, like, a supernatural thing that was happening, but some of it was just like, yeah, I mean, she's, like, an old lady who's losing her mind, and, like, you don't really know what she's capable of. Like, there was a point where she had a knife, and it was like, that daughter needs to get out of there, because, she's an old lady who's losing her mind, and she doesn't know what she's doing. Like, and so I thought it was, like, really creative and well done, how it kind of, like, leaned into the trope, but then kind of, like, didn't use the trope,
and also, like, it worked thematically. Like, it did kind of lean into that trope of the scary old lady, but it leaned into it in a way that was thematically, really powerful.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't just the creepy old lady. It was, like, the monster was dementia. It was Alzheimer's, and it was really powerful, especially with that ending. I don't think the movie would have worked nearly as well if it hadn't nailed that, stuck that landing so perfectly. And really, like, it affected me quite a bit. Me and Brandon are kind of going through a lot of that with my grandma right now. And I've been up there with her a lot. She's not, she doesn't get angry like this lady in this movie. She's actually a incredibly sweet woman, and she's only ever, gets angry with my mom because she's her daughter, and they get angry with each other. But like, I haven't really experienced the anger like this movie did, but that idea of dementia and Alzheimer's as a monster, like I'm kind of, living through that right now. And the ending, I don't want to say anything, but like the black mark that appears at the end, that was just like, yeah, that's haunting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah. I agree, Sean. Very haunting. Thanks for sharing that. Bit of real life.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I could tell that this is something that the writer, or I don't know if it was writer director or what, but the writer director, Natalie Eric James,
really cared a lot about.
Yeah, she really cared. I'm sure it's something that she went through, or saw her mother, or a parent have to go through and deal with with her grandma or something. It felt really personal, and felt like something that she wanted to
Gosh, and man,
express.
They really landed that ending though too, like that, like and I hate to, I don't mean to make it like a sexist thing or anything, but I can't help but feel like that was kind of a woman's touch to have the ending linger a little bit like that. How like the climax kind of happens, and then there's like 10 full minutes where they just like linger in that moment, and then they like kind of process it a little bit further than most movies would, and it really becomes like an emotional ending instead of like a typical horror movie ending where they just need to get out of there or something.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really an ending that'll stick with me for a long time. Like, yeah, that's pure movie magic right there.
Yeah. I do want to say one thing without spoiling it. Have you guys read House of Leaves? Do you guys have any idea what that book is?
I know the book.
It kind of the creativity. The book is extremely creative in the way that it's written. Like the format of the book like changes as you go along. There's like kind of factors inside the book, and the format kind of changes as the characters move around and stuff. And the creativity of the House of Leaves reminded me of how the climax unfolds in this movie. So I was blown away by the climax of this movie and how and what happens to the characters. I didn't see it coming, and I was just like enthralled.
Yeah.
Anyway, Derek, do you have any closing thoughts for your movie pick?
No, I'm really happy like we got to watch it. Like I really, really liked it. Glad to see like awesome movies coming out in 2020 still, even in this situation. And also I was like really, really liked the lead act, Emily Mortimer. It was like thinking the whole movie, I was like, I've seen her in so many movies, but why, gosh, she's so freaking good. I don't know why I don't see her like more shit, but
she was in the show Newsroom, the Aaron Sorkin show Newsroom.
Oh yeah, maybe
really
she's more of a TV actress. I don't know, but yeah, it's just like
that's the only thing that I've seen her in a prominent role in.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at her letterbox, and it's like she was in a lot of like very famous movies.
Yeah.
So like we've all seen her before: Shutter Island, Hugo, Mary Poppins Returns, Notting Hill, Scream 3. We've all
recognize her on the cover. You're like, oh yeah, I've seen her before. But like, yeah, once you're like, when I was just watching it, it's like I really haven't seen this out of her. Like she's freaking awesome in this movie. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we should move on to the next movie. Brandon, what was your movie pick for this month?
My pick was a film called Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. This is a film directed by Eliza Hittman, and the synopsis on IMDb says, a pair of teenage girls in rural Pennsylvania travel to New York City to seek out medical help after an unintended pregnancy. I think this is like the third or fourth film by this director, but I saw her last film, which got pretty good acclaim, called Beatrats, in theaters a few years back. And it was really, really great, like personal, very similar movie that took place very much in and about New York. And this one, late high school, almost like the same 17-year-old boy who was, kind of started prostituting and started finding out through that he was bisexual, even amongst his like kind of conservative Coney Island gang. Anyways, that's a great film. And there was a lot of crossover in the mood and style and the character types for both of these movies. So this director is kind of on a roll right now. I was pretty surprised about this movie because I know, Derek, you said you didn't know anything about it either. I didn't even watch a trailer. Yeah. I knew nothing. I didn't even read the synopsis. So it was... Sorry. It was pretty great and powerful. And we just watched this last night here at Sean's place. I think, Nick, you have a really great statement to say about the way they display this like story and kind of deliver it on just a matter-of-fact way of what she has to go through. I'll let you take that because I don't want to read what you wrote, but I think it's really well stated on how this movie deals with the politics of abortion and what women have to go through to get this procedure done, the unfortunate circumstances. One kind of interesting thing about the film is like how quiet it is and how reserved all the characters are, and this is very similar to Beatrats as well. I do wonder if it needed a little bit more like just dialogue between the two leads to like spark their relationship. And like there's a few tiny moments of like levity where you get some more bonding, and I think if there had been a couple more it would have maybe helped, and also helped when they finally did have that fight, which I think got resolved in a great way in the bathroom, which she just puts like makeup on her under her eyes. That was a really beautiful scene. But besides that, I think this movie was really powerful. It was like a slice of life that everyone really needs to see. And that's it. I'm glad I saw it. What did you guys think of it?
Brandon, I thought it was really great. I thought this was a really good movie. It was that style of movie where it's basically like trying to be as realistic as possible. Those there are these. I feel like that's a whole genre. Although I don't know what a name of that genre would be, but like, and I don't know if fly on the wall is the best term either. I just, the movie was trying to be like as just like this is life. Like, yeah, like a slice of life, I guess. But like that slice of life is something very, very dramatic and hard for someone to go through. And that statement that you're talking about, like, it reminded me, I couldn't help but think of, there are two things that I couldn't help but think of. But the song Brick by Ben Folds 5, Ben Folds has said that song, when he wrote it, he wasn't trying to make a political statement or come down on either side of the abortion issue. He was just trying to, him and his high school girlfriend got an abortion when they were in high school. And it was a very hard experience, and it was very sad for both of them. And he was just trying to write a song that was trying to capture that feeling. And I feel like
regardless of how you feel, though you should feel one way more than the other, this is just what happens, and you are watching it from beginning to end.
Right.
Regardless of what you feel about it, you need to know that this is a reality.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like, I'm a big fan of the musician Amanda Palmer. And she talks about abortion a lot, and her thing is that like more women than you would expect have had abortions. Like statistically, like we've known women, like, I don't know. I know all of your wives and girlfriends. I don't know if any of us have actually ever had to go through this, but like statistically, we've known people that have gone through it, and maybe you don't know that they have or not, but more women than you expect have gone through abortions, and they happen regardless of whether or not your feelings are of them, like whether or not politically or philosophically, like abortions are happening. And it's like most of these girls, they do what they do in this movie. They like, pull up the internet and Google where to get an abortion, and they evaluate how much money they have. And honestly, like there are cheaper places to get abortions, and there are fancier places to get abortions. Like Amanda Palmer, I saw her live a couple years ago, and she told this whole story about how she got an abortion in New York City, and she went to this place that was kind of similar to the place they went to in this movie, except maybe a little worse, where like they had like the TV on, and it was just like this, like the vibe was all weird, and they made her stand in a line, and it, like they weren't very nice to her, and she ended up leaving, and then she ended up like finding a better place where she could pay $500 and get have an abortion for that was just nicer. But either way, I'm sorry to be rambling about real life stuff, but I kind of feel like this movie captured that like experience without like making a statement about politically like you should be pro-choice or whatever. It was just like this girl is in a really rough place. She doesn't have any money, but also like she needs to get an abortion, and this is what it might look like for someone like her. This is what her story is, and it was a very realistic story, and it was very emotional.
We talked about the final scene in Relic a lot, and I think this movie just had a jaw-droppingly brilliant scene as well that happened in kind of the abortion clinic's psychiatrist office section of it. And the way the scene plays out,
so like one take,
the titular scene of the movie,
titular scene, yeah. the long shots with the psychiatrist, and he calls back to the name of the film, and she kind of has her breakdown. Like that scene is so like applause worthy, and like it hit me so hard. I teared up. I felt everything, and that director nailed it so perfectly.
Yeah, and that performance, like I just was looking on IMDb. This is her first credited performance, period. And
wait, what's her name? Can we say her name?
It's Sydney Flanagan.
Okay.
It is. This is it. Apparently, she was on the soundtrack. Performed on the soundtrack for this as well. But anyways, and the way that she performs that scene, like, you can see her physically getting more and more like agitated and or not agitated, but flustered. And then when they go into the never, rarely, sometimes, always part of that scene, her face just like turns red, and like she doesn't start crying, but like
she can't speak.
She can't speak.
She can't get the words out.
And it is such a nuanced, subtle, brilliant performance, and for it to be an unbroken shot just of a close up of her face. That's pretty incredible. And that scene worked almost entirely because of that performance, and the writing as well was.
It's probably like a
brilliant, but
5 to 7 minute shot too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
The director Eliza Hittman is very good at capturing. Like she's just really good at pulling out that like realistic feeling from people, because I feel like Beach Rats had the same thing going on, where it was just like, just capturing real life and the performance of
you saw
that.
Beach Rats too, Nick?
Yeah, I saw Beach Rats.
Oh, I looked up on Letterboxd. I swear you didn't review it. But
I have it written on. I don't think I wrote anything about it, but I saw it and I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the New York movies just like you do. That was cool because it was like Coney Island, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anything else? Like, Derek, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I mean, like you guys, I really liked the movie. I definitely thought that this was like about making music for sure. Like going into it, I was like, this could be like a musical movie.
There is a movie.
I don't know why.
Oh boy.
I don't like the letterbox pictures her singing, and like for some reason I just thought it was about
like the intro with her guitar.
Yeah, and then so it started out exactly
She's
as
like
expected.
singing.
I was like, okay,
Yeah, she's like singing in the picture and stuff. Yeah.
and boy, was this not that. But it's a pretty bleak movie. I feel like, and it is obviously like a slice of life, but it's like there's so much more in there that's just like, God, this, like, they just got it rough, like even like their boss is like constantly like sexually harassing them, and like it's like every guy they meet is like doing weird shit to them, and like it just like fucking sucks, and you really just feel so bad for these girls. And the one thing that I really appreciated that they did with this movie is that they still were able to build kind of like a structured adventure out of like this slice of like out of like a real story. I don't know if it's based on like anyone's specific experience, but I think like being able to have like a resolution where throughout all these like hardships that these girls face, and they're still able to like complete their goal, and like as dark as it may be, like I felt at the end there's like some levity that even though
you're saying like these slice of life movies can meander,
and
this, like,
some of them will just
had
end
a point and a pace that you knew we were building towards.
Yeah, like you could almost take like a hero's journey, and I think this movie kind of follows it for the most part. And
I mean, there certainly are parts where they have to face obstacles and overcome like villains in some ways, and figure out how to survive on the street and stuff.
Of the adventure, and
yeah. I get that. I didn't think about that at all, but that's a really good point. Like,
that's interesting.
for how realistic this movie is, it actually has like a structure of film.
Yeah. Well, and I think that little bit was able to like, Brandon's notorious for picking like movies like that. I feel like that are like really bleak and like dark and upsetting, and I think just having it kind of have that like arc really helps me connect with it in a way that a lot of those other movies feel like they're kind of pushing me away. Like I'm not able to connect with them as much.
Totally.
So I just appreciate that they put that amount of thought into how to tell a real story.
Yeah.
I don't mean like those stories are fake. I just mean like it's like more of a real life story, and they still were able to structure it in a way that like, I don't know, it feels like it completed, and you have hope, even though she's going back right to where the situation that caused everything was, but you kind of have hope that hopefully she's come out changed in a way that'll be positive.
Yeah, I think another thing about this movie is we could sit here and unpack the psychology of these characters for a while. There's so much complexity going on with what they were dealing with and how they deal with it. As I assume they were both 17 years old, or right around, maybe not under 18.
Yeah.
I know they were cousins, but yeah, the young girls at that age with kind of unsupportive parents, being forced to deal with this situation, and the psychology of how they deal with it as teenagers was incredibly complex and nuanced and interesting. And
I was thinking if that's where a lot of the silence came from. They were cousins, not necessarily friends. And I was
Yeah.
trying to like, maybe they didn't really hang out that much, but they worked together, and this was kind of her reaching out for one of the first times to be a very close friend.
Yeah,
And
that
so
was
maybe that's where a lot of the silence in New York came from. Like they weren't buddy
Yeah.
much.
That very well
And
could
maybe it's
be.
because they were just cousins.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was the impression I got, was that that they weren't like super tight, but then when her cousin saw that she was in basically just a super desperate situation, she dropped everything to help her out, because that's what family does.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, such a beautiful relationship, and like, man, the scene. I don't want to get into spoilers, but the scene where, they hold hands, where, it was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much going on in that scene. There's so many layers in that one scene, with like that guy and
Oh, okay. I know what
how
scene you're talking about.
wrong.
It took me
I
a
mean,
while.
me, Brandon, and Kelly were getting into a pretty in-depth discussion about that guy alone, and morality of that guy and the other men in the movie, and what was going on there. One subtle thing with that scene, earlier on in the movie, the cousin made a joke in the bathroom where she took a French whore's shower, and it's a not. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that was kind of a subtle little nod to, or foreshadowing of that scene that plays out later, with that guy. But yeah, any thoughts on that, or?
I liked that scene because of them being a little more playful.
Yeah.
That was one of the few times.
I mean, like Sean, like you said, Sean, there's a lot that we can unpack with this movie, and we also have 2 more movies to talk about, though. So, I think that we should move on.
Yeah.
We shouldn't get too far in depth, because we do have to keep going. But I just want to say real quick, Brandon, what do you think of musician Sharon Van Etten in this movie? That was kind of surprising seeing her.
Sean said she was in the movie, but I didn't know who she was until we looked up it after.
I forgot that she was in the movie, and I said it last podcast, and I totally forgot until the end of of the movie. But yeah,
good pick, Brandon.
small role, but good.
I think this movie was
good
on
pick.
all our radars, so I'm really glad you put it on there for us to actually sit down and watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess we should say that, Brandon, you switched from the one that you previewed last month, because we couldn't find that one anywhere. So turns out that one's actually not out yet. So
did I just say that?
Switched
Did I
mid-month.
just say that in text, or did I say that on the podcast?
Not on the podcast.
I guess I didn't say it on the podcast then. But anyways,
Cool. Well, let's move on to the next movie. Looks like my movie's next. So I picked a movie called First Cow, which I've texted a few friends just saying like, hey, I just watched this movie about a cow on the Oregon Trail. It's really sweet. You guys would like it. And that's kind of what it's about. Real quick, I'll read the summary on Letterboxd. Taciturn loner and skilled cook has traveled west and joined a group of fur trappers in Oregon Territory, though he only finds true connection with a Chinese immigrant also seeking his fortune. Soon the two collaborate on a successful business, although its longevity is reliant upon the clandestine participation of a nearby wealthy landowner's prized milking cow. So
It's long.
yeah, I mean that's the plot though, basically. Yeah. I mean it's about this guy, his name's Cookie, and he's on the Oregon Trail and he's working with these trappers, and then he the movie kind of skips around time a little bit, and he ends up connecting with this other guy, King Lou, and they Cookie just wants to be a baker in the Oregon Trail for whatever reason, and they find a cow that's owned by this I don't know what you would call him, but he's a leader of this territory. He's like a wealthy dude, and everyone looks up to him, does whatever he wants kind of thing, and he's just
an Englishman. I don't know if they have like more
Yeah.
at that time, if they had more like authority.
Yeah, I mean, he's very wealthy. I mean, I think just having a lot of money, he can do what he wants or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he has a cow out there, and I think he really only uses the cow for like basic dairy use. Like he just wants to have cream for his coffee, I think. Like he doesn't really do much more. So they start sneaking into the land at night, the property, and just milking the cow at night, and then he starts making these pastries and selling the pastries at the market, and they become extremely successful. And there's all these like really interesting scenes of them making the pastries. It's like they fry them. It's like they have all this oil and they fry the pastries, and then all these like manly men, typical Western people that you would imagine. Like the two main characters, Cookie and King Lou, are not your typical Western heroes, and they start baking these like little cookies. They're not cookies, they're like
biscuits.
They're like donut type biscuits. Yeah, they're like biscuits. And so they start baking these biscuits for these like manly men who are grizzled and coming out of the woods and
getting in fights. And
never tasted anything like that before.
So that all of that was like very interesting, and I like Kelly Reinhardt a lot. She's that's the director of this film, and that's why I picked this, because I've seen most of her movies. I think there's only one I haven't seen. I haven't seen Old Joy, but I've seen Certain Women and Wendy and Lucy. Wendy and Lucy is my favorite one. But Sean, you worked on Night Moves, so she's like a very indie director. Like she totally does low budget movies, and she has her style is almost like, it's kind of like Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, where it's like very realistic in a lot of ways, but also like hers are usually pretty slow, and often hardly anything happens in the movie. Night Move is the one you worked on, Sean. I feel like it is the most plotty of all of her movies, and First Cow is up there with how plotty it is. Although there's barely any plot, I think it sets it up pretty quick that that this business isn't sustainable, but then you're just kind of like enjoying them doing it, selling these things. And I feel like there's a very sweet sentimentality with most of her movies, and this is very, very present there. The guy Cookie, when he milks the cow, he has these very sweet conversations with the cow. Like the first time he milks it, he's going like, "Oh, I know you're not expecting a visitor at this time of night, but I'm just gonna use some of your milk, And then he comes back the next day and he's like, "People at the market love the biscuits, and it's all because of your milk," as he's milking her, and it just like it's just really, really sweet. And there's like true like heart to this movie, and the relationship between Cookie and King Lou is like really wonderful as well, because King Lou's like all capitalism. Like he keeps thinking like, oh, we can make money off this, and Cookie's just kind of like, he doesn't really see the need to take the risks. He says multiple times like, I don't know, it seems kind of risky, but then he does it anyway because he likes doing it. Like it's what he wants to do. And so I just kept wishing that there was like some way where they could have done it legally. And that's one thing that I kept thinking about throughout the movie. I don't really want to get into spoilers about it, but I don't know if you guys have seen Meek's Cutoff, but I was talking to Matthew Cauchet, he said this is his number one movie of the year so far, and he feels like this is like a opposite Meek's Cutoff, because Meek's Cutoff was also like an Oregon Trail movie, but that one was very, very bleak and like very like nihilistic and sad and just lost, and this movie's more like sad and hopeful in some ways. And I mean, I don't want to get into the ending because of spoilers, but I think this movie is just very, very sweet, and I had a blast with it. And I do think it starts out very slow, and I was at first like, I don't know how much I'm gonna actually enjoy this movie, and then like he starts milking the cow, and I was on board completely after that. And
it's such a funny scene.
Nick, I was asking myself that question as like, I would have loved for a scene of them once they were making a profit, for them to just at least try to offer him money for some milk. Like, they didn't even try, and it just could have saved them, or I guess it could have ruined everything because he would have kind of saw what they were doing. But yeah, like, once they had some money, I wish they would have tried that.
Well, yeah, I think there's like there's some interesting economic theory going on in this movie too. Like the only reason why they were able to make a lot of money is because there were no cows. That was the only cow, and it takes a rich guy who's willing to blow money on a cow, bringing a cow up from California up to this super remote Oregon territory, just because he has the money to blow on it. That's the only real way to make money as a baker, and using the milk to do this.
Yeah, I liked those scenes with his friend talking about we got to, like, this isn't going to last. Like, once cows come up here, this is all going to be over. We need to move on.
And they can't go down to San Francisco and do that because there's a ton of cows there's already a ton of cows down there, and there's too much competition with baking, and they're talking about opening a hotel down there, and there's so I thought there was a lot of interesting stuff going on with that as well.
I also really liked the setting of this movie, and even with like this director on such a low budget, she's able to like make such a realistic environment that I guess you just don't see very often in film, like Oregon Northwest, but in 1800s, like mid 1800s, I guess is what I'm guessing this was in. It's just like it felt super just realistic, like you were living in the mud with these horrible lives of these people that they have to go through, compared to our standards. And like literally I remember when they were counting their money, and there's literally just like seashells in there, and like they weren't even using any kind of currency. They were so far away from civilization.
Like some silver coins, and one of the silver coins was like cut in half.
Yeah, it was just like these really great details.
And then they were using, I don't know, like cloth.
One thing that I thought was really interesting about the setting was when they were like, okay, let's go down to the market and see if people buy these. And any other market, they'd have like a table, and there'd be other people at the market, but they just went down to the town and then just sat in the mud. And they just were like, well, hopefully people will buy these. We're just sitting here on the ground, and then people would walk
Their
up
dirty hands just touching all these biscuits and handing it to you, and no one cares.
And then they turned into profit, but still they were just sitting there in the mud, and it's just like, you don't really see that in film too often. I mean, how many Westerns are there in the world, and how many of them are about like the Oregon Trail? Not many. I mean, Sean, you're the Western expert here, but I
mean, there was McCabe and Miss Miller, which was not about the Oregon Trail, but Oregon Territory.
I also really liked the cold open with Maybe in it from Arrested Development, and I thought it was an interesting conversation. Slash Film was talking about if they were like, this only could have been at the opening, it couldn't have been chronological, but like I think there could be a really awesome cut at the end to just this dog all of a sudden in the river, and you're just like, what is happening? But regardless of all that, like it worked so well as a cold open, and it reminded me of the opening of season 2 of The Leftovers and what they do with time on that. Just a really brilliant idea to start a movie and to juxtapose the timelines like that.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing that cold open does is it allows the movie to end where it ends while giving it a beautiful closure.
Yeah.
That
cap it off with the extra information.
Yeah, without actually having to go through that scene where, okay, obviously the one guy dies from his concussion. I guess, sorry, got right into spoiler there. But yeah, I mean, without having to go into, well, maybe it's not a spoiler because of the cold open, but like, it completes that story without having to show it or tell it, and it's able to end with this really beautiful moment between the two characters. while having already told the rest of the story. And I think that's what's so interesting about that. And again, like another movie that totally just nails its ending for me. And like Nick, you were talking about where this fits in the Western genre. I would say like this is almost an anti-Western.
Like would you consider this a Western? Like, or like, I mean, is
it? Yeah, I would. It like would fit right along with McCabe and Miss Miller and like Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, and like as an anti-Western, like really flipping all the Western tropes on its head, but it's still clearly a Western. Like, it's not about those manly men who get in fights in bars, and it's about this baker and his buddy who started a baking business and start making money from it by stealing milk from it. It's and it doesn't even it's similar to McCabe and Miss Miller. It doesn't have that typical Western shootout in the end. This movie chooses not to even show that, because of what the cold open accomplished. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of tropes that you could almost say it take that trope but do the opposite of it, and that is this movie, and that's how it fits into the Western genre.
Okay, totally. That's a great point. Cool. I'll add it to my Western list. I don't know if I told you, but I made a list of 100 Westerns, and so like eventually I'll work through them, and then I too will be a Western expert. But of the 100, I've seen 50. Yeah. So I mean,
it's a lot.
It's a good start.
You're already an expert. Yeah. Jesus.
Well, I mean, Sean's probably seen more, so I mean.
No, I only saw for my Western movie, I've seen a bunch more outside of
counting
that,
the ones he's seen over the last decade as well.
I watched like 35 movies in my Westerns anthology.
Right, but I mean, like my list also has Almost Heroes and Wild Wild West on it, so
those are Westerns.
Yeah,
absolutely Westerns.
They're definitely Westerns, but you know what I mean. Like you're definitely past 50. You're probably
yeah, that's true. I'm sure I am.
Cool. Well, we can move on to the next movie, though. I highly recommend this movie, though.
Back to the Future 3.
Yep. Cool. So the last movie that we're going to talk about today is Sean's pick. Sean, you want to set up your pick?
I picked the movie Weathering with You. This is from the director. Let me take it slow for a second here. The director Makoto Shinkai. The writer-director of a movie that I absolutely loved, Your Name, which came out a few years ago. I picked this movie based on some good word of mouth.
Me on this podcast 6 months ago.
Yeah, Brandon on this podcast 6 months ago. But also because I loved that movie so much. Your Name had such a fun and interesting sci-fi concept. It had such great characters, and most of all, I loved the idea of two characters falling in love by living the other person's life and dealing with their problems and falling in love by trying to make each other's lives better. I thought that was such a great concept and so well executed, and had such interesting characters and everything. And I know that you're not there's no point in comparing these two movies just because there's similar, the same writer-director. But I kind of I tried not to, but I maybe part of me did. But I was a little underwhelmed by this movie. I didn't dislike it really in any way. It just was underwhelming. I guess for me, I felt like the central concept of the movie was a little uninteresting. Like the idea of a sunshine girl, I didn't really find that very interesting. I found the relationship pretty kind of one-dimensional. The romantic relationship pretty one-dimensional. And I found most of the characters somewhat uninteresting and not very well established. I found myself not knowing who the characters were, aside from just good-hearted people. I was a little underwhelmed by this movie. Having said that, it was absolutely a gorgeous movie. There were some brilliant, subtle moments, like character moments that like got these big, grand, exaggerated animated representations of what like the characters were going through. That was really cool. You can't deny the beauty of the animation and the creativity there. But other than that, I was a little underwhelmed by the story and the characters and the concept and the idea of the movie. So, but I do really want to hear what you guys have to say.
I could not disagree more. So pains me so much to hear this. And I got to see it twice, and I like it even more now. Though previously I loved it, and it's been like 4 years since Your Name came out. But at this point, I feel like this is somehow the better of the two films. And on the rewatch, I just rewatched it, and I'm like ecstatic about this movie. It's going to go even higher on my end of the year list than I was expecting early in the year when I saw it. It blew me away. I think one detail that stood out this time that I didn't really realize the first time was specifically the sound editing. And I know that's really specific, but like they did it over and over again in the movie. Like when he pulls out the gun early on with the guys that are trying to beat them up. Even in the climax when they're like falling from the sky, they do this like a really cool thing where they just everything goes dead silent
except for one
like sound or one note in the score, and sometimes they'll like tweak the notes so it's like all electronic-y sounding, and that's all you're hearing for a moment. It just has these really powerful effects, and it gave me like chills a lot of the time, and I think like literally the sound editing was the culprit for a lot of it. And along with the sound, like I didn't really pinpoint it last time, but there's like a really reminded me of Legend of Zelda score with maybe it's the instrumentation they were using for this. Yeah. But it was super beautiful when it wasn't like, exaggerated anime J-pop music. It was this like really beautiful Legend of Zelda score that tied the movie together. And the climax of this film to me was like so many perfect endings on our picks today, but like it's one of the most epic grand climaxes you could ask for in this movie, what it culminates to, with the sky ending. And it really got to like I kind of was tearing up when he kind of has his final confession while falling through the clouds. And then I think it's super ballsy of the writers right after that to say what happens to Tokyo afterwards, and they just go all in on this like sci-fi Tokyo-ness into the future. And that was just a really cool like touch to the ending, is how far they're willing to take the weather and what it does to the city. Love the film. I think especially after this rewatch, it will probably be in my top 10 film. So exact opposite. Yeah,
I'm totally with you, Brandon. Like I haven't seen Your Name. The fact that like in general it seems like people consider it the better of the two is crazy. I'm really excited to watch that now. And that like Your Name was on my radar just from people liking it so much, but it was one of those movies that I don't. It could be years before I get around to watching it, and I'm so glad you guys had me watch this because your name, like, I'm watching it this week for sure. But God, yeah, like I echo everything Brandon said. Like especially with the ending, is just so big and like there's like I feel like we've had conversations that are similar to. There's a moment in here where they're kind of one of the side characters is kind of. I guess he's one of the main characters, but the guy with the daughter, is like kind of going through his his shtick, and he's kind of dealing with what
his niece, I guess, or something.
No,
well,
his
he's
daughter.
talking to his niece, but yeah,
His
but
niece
he's like
is.
Alison Brie.
Yeah, he was living with his niece, but he
Okay,
did have
okay,
he had a
sorry.
daughter
Yeah.
as well.
But yeah, they're talking, and they kind of talk about like I don't know if we're worried about spoilers or not with this movie. I don't know if I should talk about this actually.
Go for
Well,
it.
just like they're talking about like the morality behind. He's like, well, if we have to sacrifice one person to like save the city, pretty much, like it's fine, and like it's not a big deal. I feel like we've had this discussion in like high school and stuff about different movies that have kind of posed the same thing, like Cabin in the Woods and stuff like that. Like, and just
Watchmen.
yeah, Watchmen, and just to be willing to like so. Like in this movie is so bright and like cheerful and like pretty sweet, and like heartwarming, and like it's peppered with these really dark concepts like that right there is a pretty big like like moral quandary of a decision for them to just full on make at the end of the movie. There's like this is how it's going to be, and it's like that's awesome.
He says it while he's like having his drink and lighting up his cigarette that he's not supposed to have.
Right.
It's like really dark scene.
Yeah. And this movie like has a lot of those. Like, I mean, it's like a playful animated movie for the most part, except for when like a little kid pulls out a gun and shoots at like a person, and like it's like it's filled with it has like this really interesting tone where it's just I don't know, that dark undertone of the themes that they're dealing with, I think really help this movie not feel like too much like indulging into like the anime scene. You know what I mean? Like I like anime a lot, but it's like crazy exaggerated about everything. And while this has tons of exaggerated concepts and it bases itself not in reality enough that like we don't question like weird things like the weather, like what's happening in the whole movie. But like that dark undertone kind of helps keep it grounded enough too, where I don't know, it just finds this like untargetable line that I've never really seen, and it rides it so perfectly throughout the whole thing. Just everything works for me in this movie. I was totally into like the J-pop stuff too. Like I don't know, just like rocking it. Like God, this movie's just like singing the whole way, and
it's used really well.
Yeah, it is. And I totally bought into like their relationship, and I think you kind of, at least I kind of approach animated relationships differently than like live action relationships, if that makes sense. Like I feel like they're carrying a heavier load, like trying to convince us of different things, and so I can kind of like hear what Sean's saying about different character aspects, but for me, like those in an animated setting, I feel like they work in where like if this movie was done in live, like I was constantly thinking, because I've heard a lot about rumors they're trying to do like a live action Your Name movie. And I was kind of thinking throughout this, I was like, I wonder how they do this. Like I don't think this movie would work in live action, at least not the way it is. Like they'd have to change it drastically. I don't know what my point was there. I think there's like I grant animated stuff a little bit of a leeway when they're trying to do like really grounded stuff, because it's not a grounded medium, and the story on its big scale isn't grounded really either. And so I don't know, I think they figured it out and they did it perfectly. And yeah, I just love, it's just such a big, cool, unique concept done in a way that I haven't seen done before. And they still like did it in like Tokyo as opposed to like some magical place, you know. Yeah, I just loved it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Derek. That I think I personally think it's totally fair to view animated movies a little different. I mean, just as like I view horror movies different sometimes too. It's like I think it's fair to look at a movie in its genre a bit. I mean, you're not gonna watch Cars and be like, you know, where are the door handles or whatever. Although you might as a joke, but you know, it's like that's not a real criticism of a movie or like the realism or whatever. So.
Right.
Nick, did you see this movie?
I did not see this movie. I didn't make time to watch it, I should say. You know, we talked about it, and it was like, I thought I said last episode that you weren't 100%, like you didn't have to watch all of the movies. You were encouraged to. Yeah. And this last month I've been busier than I've ever been. And I saw Your Name in 2017. And I didn't really like it. I'm not really that into anime, and I read a little bit about this one, and I was like, I don't think this is for me. If I have time, I'll watch it, but I didn't have time, so I apologize. I didn't get to it, but that's why I've been so quiet, because I'm like, I'm not gonna like. I already have a predisposition to not enjoy. Like it's like I have the same thing going on with musicals and like period pieces sometimes. Like I just have a predisposition to not like
movies about talking animals.
Yeah. Like that doesn't mean I don't. That doesn't mean I won't find movies like that I will enjoy, but it's more, I gotta like overcome a lot, and I have to be like in the right headspace. And if I just was like, if I'm forcing myself to like this, to watch it, I'm probably not going to enjoy it. And I just didn't have the time.
Yeah. It was funny, Nick, because Sean almost didn't watch First Cow, and he was like, I don't think Nick said it was a requirement to watch all the movie. And I was like, Sean, we have time. Turn it on. And he watched it this afternoon.
Yeah.
For what it's worth,
we understand. You're much busier than Sean is right now.
Much busier.
For what it's worth, I think this was my favorite movie we watched this month.
Oh wow!
This really,
Wow. It's our most divided movie.
It's freaking awesome.
It's so funny because Sean picked it, and you guys are just raving about it. Like I'm so into this whole thing of like, you got to pick a movie that you think you'll like, and hopefully it'll work out for you. And then
it's kind of awkward giving the opening statement
to a movie you didn't like,
for a movie,
but you forced us to, or told us to.
Just swapped,
especially one where immediately everyone else praises it.
The other funny thing about this movie, though, too, is that this movie also was almost unavailable because you thought, Brandon reviewed this back in like 6 months ago, so we figured it'd be out and available to stream, but turns out the only way it was watchable is if you bought it. So so you ended up buying this movie and then sharing your Amazon password with
you were the one that bought it and you don't even like it.
Oh
man.
Yeah,
we should all be ashamed of ourselves. I was actually planning on saying this. We all, Nick, you probably don't know, but we all watched the English version of this film.
Oh, yeah.
And as film critics, Sean bought the English version and the Japanese version was not purchased.
Oops.
So we watched this dubbed like amateurs, and we should all be embarrassed.
I definitely take the blame, obviously.
Sean, maybe you would have liked it more if you had seen the Japanese version.
I don't know. I bought it. Like it's weird because I feel like, since DVDs have been out, you buy a DVD and there's like a Japanese dub, an American original, and French. There's
different?
like 5 different languages. So I wasn't even thinking about it. I just went to Amazon and I bought it. And after I bought it, I realized it was the English version.
That's really weird.
And I probably could have like returned it and gotten the Japanese version, but I was like,
but it is.
For the record, the
animated,
lead's melancholy like voice, I was kind of into, like with his narration and that went through the movie. Like I was kind of into like his kind of sad voice.
Yeah. It was mostly Japanese actors that did all the voices, anyways.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was Alison Brie.
Alison Brie. There was like 1 or 2. The Riz Ahmed. Just Riz Ahmed was in there, and
Who?
Riz Ahmed.
RZA?
No.
Oh, Riz Ahmed. I thought you said the RZA. I was
I
like,
did.
RZA?
I said the Riz Ahmed on accident. But yeah.
Well, cool.
But yeah.
Cool. Great. Well, I mean, do you guys have anything to add, or should we close up this episode?
Close it. Shut it.
Close it up.
Lock it up.
Cool. Well, I mean, we're gonna do the same thing next month, where we've all picked a movie from 2020, and like I said just moments ago, you're not required to watch all the movies, although it is encouraged.
Yeah.
I think the conversation goes a little better when we all have seen it, we all have something to say, and it's fun. I mean, it's
That
like,
goes for the listeners too.
yeah, come on, play along with us. You have 4 weeks to watch 4 movies. 5 movies, 4 weeks to watch 5 movies.
In quarantine.
If something sounds interesting, yeah, like let's listen, let's watch it. Let's have a great time with it. So, Sean, what movie are you going to watch? Which 2020 movie are you going to watch?
I mean, how can we not talk about Mulan?
Absolutely, great pick. We should talk about Mulan. Mulan is going to be available on Disney Plus.
The only big blockbuster that's come out this year.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, not entirely. Birds
Well-
of Prey. I guess there's couple early on. What else was there? Birds of Prey, is that it? There's a couple horror movies, but
I mean,
Definitely biggest sense.
Yeah.
yeah. I think it is fair to say too that like Tenet is coming out, but it's not going to be like New York, Seattle. Like I as far as I know, theaters are not anywhere near opening Tenet around here. Although it is advertised at a drive-in up north in Oak Harbor, but I've also heard that Christopher Nolan isn't letting it play in drive-ins unless theaters are open in that general area. So I don't know. I'm toying with the idea of going to see it at a drive-in, but I also think that big, like serious action movies don't play very well at drive-ins.
Yeah, I
like
feel like that would not be fun.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I saw a Mission Impossible like 5 or 6 at the drive-in, and it was like kind of underwhelming. Whereas like Jumanji, Enter the Jungle, like that would be pretty fun at the drive-in. It just I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical with Tenet at the
Guys,
drive-in.
I just had a flash that I was watching Tenet in the Dolby Atmos theater, and like I had a daydream for a second, and I was so happy.
Yeah.
Like I mentally was there, and like there a rush of happiness.
It will play there. It just might be like a year from now before it plays there.
Yeah.
I guarantee you
I
when that
miss the
opens,
movies.
it's going to be one of the first things playing there. But
Yeah. Anyway, so Mulan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail it, but Mulan is a blockbuster that is going to be out in just September, and you're picking it. You're gonna watch it, and we are encouraged to watch it too.
We'll figure out how to watch it too.
Yeah.
It's because it's kind of expensive. Like you have to be subscribed to Disney Plus, and it's going to be $30 on top of that.
Yeah,
So
which is
we'll figure something out. Maybe we'll do a watch party when Brandon's here.
it's kind of crazy that it's that much, but also it's like that I think the idea is that you would watch it with your family, where if you went to the theater, you'd be paying that much. So
and it's like they made this movie expecting to make
$1 billion.
$1.5 billion at a minimum. So
Sounds ridiculous to say that number.
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So Brandon, what movie are you picking for next month?
My movie is my movie is Boy State. This is a documentary that just came out on Apple TV Plus, whatever it's called, streaming. It's about Texas high school students who kind of go into a boys politics camp, and it's kind of like a model UN, but for like U.S. politics only, and that's kind of what this camp is. I guess they have them in a lot of states. But anyways, it's a documentary. It's gotten incredible reviews, and it's streaming on Apple TV Plus.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. Cool. Well, that's good to know. Derek, what about you?
My movie I'm picking is called You Cannot Kill David Arquette. I just found out about this movie yesterday, and I'm so pumped for it. Or like I watched the trailer for it. The trailer it just kicks ass. It looks so awesome. So Nick, you might even know more about this. Do you know about this movie? Have you heard of it?
I think I heard that they were making it. I do know about David Arquette. I know a lot about David Arquette.
Yeah.
And so I think I know about like what this documentary is about, probably more than I know about the documentary.
I think you probably know a little bit more about, like, I'll tell you about it a little bit. It's a wrestling documentary essentially about David Arquette and his relationship with wrestling. And apparently the plot of this movie is him actually training for a long time and like trying to redeem himself. I don't fully understand his world, like his relation to wrestling, but the trailer kind of made it seem like it's like it's not great.
Deep, man.
Like
it's deep, man. I mean, Ready to Rumble. I mean,
right.
We've all seen Ready to Rumble, right? I mean,
yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't say we all have, but I definitely have.
Yeah.
And that was a WCW movie, and then he actually started appearing in WCW, and he became WCW champion. And that was like one of the moments that you can point to and be like, yeah, WCW died because of that. Like that company went out of business, like months later because of choices like that. Where in wrestling you can you decide what happens, who becomes the champion and stuff, and they chose to have this guy who's not a wrestler become the champion, and it was just awful. Right. But yeah, and then he tried it.
This is kind of him trying to redeem himself and actually do like a good wrestling, like have a, I don't know if he had some sort of career, I'm sure it'll explore it, but at least one, match where he can actually prove that he's a wrestler to some extent, I guess. So apparently it's getting really good reviews. I'm just really, really fascinated with that and excited to watch it.
It's extremely fascinating. I didn't know this was coming out so soon. So yeah, I'm psyched. Good pick. Great pick. I'm picking the movie I'm Thinking of Ending Things. This is Charlie Kaufman's new film. He is known as a writer mostly, where he wrote Being John Malkovich, Adaptation, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, some of my favorites. And
Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Yeah, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Yeah, he. This is his third film that he's actually directed. So he did Synecdoche, New York, Anomalisa. So this is his third one, and he's always full of extremely creative ideas. All of his movies are just extremely creative and unique and totally different. You don't know what you're going to get with his movies. I honestly I barely know anything about the plot of this movie, which I kind of, I'm kind of trying to leave it that way, but it is going to be available on Netflix like next weekend. So anyone can watch it that has Netflix. So check out this one. It should be interesting. I'm Thinking of Ending Things. So for our film club segment, Brandon, you're picking the movie from any time period that all of us are forced to watch. What movie are you picking for us?
So I'm going to spare you guys on. I will not be picking Capernaum to force you guys to watch, and I'm going to go for a much less depressing film and a much way weirder film.
Ooh.
This movie is called Border.
Oh,
it's a Swedish film that came out in 2018. It's a Swedish fantasy drama, and I loved this movie so much. It just barely missed my top 10 that year, and I'm really excited to rewatch it and to have you guys experience it.
I think it's
great.
It's on Hulu, I think.
Yeah, it's on Hulu.
I've almost watched it so many times.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's not what you expect at all.
Yeah.
No matter how much you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the poster. That's all I really know, and it looks weird. But I mean, it could be about anything. But yeah, that movie's Border. I'm very excited about this. Great. I'm glad you're forcing us to watch this one. So great pick.
Good job.
Cool. And with that, I think we should just wrap the episode up. Thanks for listening, everybody. And, watch some movies. Enjoy it. Don't go outside. Wash your hands and, be safe out there and watch movies. There's still a bunch out there that are right in your living room. So check it out. This has been the Monthly Movie Dispatch. And have a great day. Bye.
See ya.
See you.